Today, I'm proud to report, thanks to the strong leadership of President Donald Trump and the strong relationship between President Erdogan and Turkey and the United States of America, that today the United States and Turkey have agreed to a ceasefire in Syria.
Big news. Vice President Mike Pence now on his way back to America from Turkey after reaching a deal that would pause military operations by Turkey in Syria. Turkey agreeing to a 5-day ceasefire to allow the Kurds to withdraw from an area along the Turkish border. President Trump responding this afternoon. Listen.
We've done a great thing for our partner. If we didn't go this unconventional, tough love approach, you could have never gotten it done. We've gotten everything we could have ever dreamed of, and we're also going to be able to bring our people back home. But we'll be able to have control of ISIS total. We'll be able to do whatever we have to do to get the rest of ISIS.
Here now is Heritage Foundation national security expert James Carafano. Jim, good to see you. Is the president right? Can we keep a lid on ISIS even if we bring our forces home from Syria?
Well, first of all, I don't know if we've saved civilization, but this deal definitely makes the best of a bad situation. I don't think we'll actually be pulling all of our forces out of Syria. We still have forces in southern Syria. I imagine they'll probably still stay there. And what this will allow us to do is have access into the northern part of the country still. So my guess is we'll still be doing counterterrorism operations in there, and that will probably be enough. You know, you have to remember that nobody wants to see the caliphate come back. Not the Russians, not the Iranians, not Assad, not the YPG, not the Turks. So nobody has a vested interest in doing that. I think we'll be able to do enough to kind of keep the lid on it.
James, Gary Kaltbaum, call me befuddled. I watched the president today talking about great for civilization, praising Erdogan, a guy who just killed a bunch of people and had families running for their lives. And when I'm listening to the president thinking, wow, this has got to be great. And we find out it's a pause for 5 days, which means Erdogan, who he knows is a bad guy, he's just going to start up again in 6 days. What are your thoughts?
So you know, all the rhetoric aside, this is making the best of a bad situation. The U.S. didn't greenlight the Turkish incursion. We don't have the forces and the capability to really stop it. It wouldn't make sense for us to get into a shooting war between the YPG and Turks. What this does is it really significantly lowers and mitigates the potential for needless casualties. So either civilians getting hurt or the YPG and the Turks shooting at each other. And so it does allow for a peaceful transfer. And what they've said is after a 5-day of cessation, if both sides honor this, that this will transition into a ceasefire that will give the Turks a buffer zone, which will make the Turks happy. The YPG will still be there. It's not going to solve the Syria civil war, but it's much, much better than having them fight over the terrain.
But James, you just finished by saying that we can't stop them from entering. But haven't we been doing that thus far until we pulled out? And to Gary's point, you have TRT, Turkish radio and television, that is saying, and many Turkish media at this moment, saying that it's not a ceasefire and the Kurds are rejecting the deal out of hand. And I want to pinpoint a word that you used. You referred to them as the YPG. The United States called them the Syrian Democratic Forces. We know that Vice President Pence said today the YPG almost as a concession to Turkey, and you're referring to them as well as the YPG, also considered a terrorist organization.
Okay, so
can you explain that?
Okay, time out. So yeah, the SDF is the umbrella political organization. The YPG is the armed militia under the SDF. So they're both. They're SDF, they're YPG, and indeed they have connections to the PKK, which is a terrorist organization. So they're kind of all those things. Look, the Turks have wanted to do this for a long time. The United States has been trying to deter them from doing it a long time. But at the end, we didn't have the capability to do that. You know, people keep saying, we just said, go do this. If you think about it, to do this kind of incursion, it's thousands of troops, it's weeks of planning, logistics, and everything else. So the Turks have been preparing to do this for a long time, and we don't really have the capacity to stop them from doing that. What this does is it at least allows the possibility of a peaceful turnover, less casualties, less civilian casualties, no atrocities. I mean, I think that's better than just having them shoot at each other.
Exactly. Well, Erdogan said that he was actually going to go in anyway, right? So President Trump did the right thing by pulling U.S. forces out to avoid any potential conflict, military conflict with our NATO partner. But with that said, over the next 5 days, if Erdogan is not satisfied with the current state and the current negotiations, and he still moves forward, continue to use aggressive force against the Kurds, besides sanctions, what other options are left for President Trump?
I think sanctions are the most powerful tool the U.S. has. The Turks have to be held accountable for what they do. Even if they move in, look, if they commit atrocities, if they let ISIS run wild, if they do not treat civilians properly, they have to be held accountable for all those things. And the most potent instrument the U.S. really does have to do that with is sanctions.
Jim Carafano, we got to leave it at that.